Welcome to NightPulse, where we delve into darkness every Tuesday and Friday night. If you enjoy an evening, or even daytime chill, please hit like and subscribe for more unsettling tales like this. Now, lower the lights, get comfortable, and let the pulse of darkness pull you in. My eyes began to itch long before they began to hurt. That was the first sign. A constant, crawling irritation deep beneath the lids, as if something was trapped behind my eyes and scraping gently against the inside of the sockets, testing the space. Rubbing only made it worse. Eye drops did nothing. Sleep offered no relief. I work nights at a bar called Worship, in the city of Eden. It is a narrow place, heavy with red light and mirrors. The walls are lined with them, tall mirrors, warped mirrors, mirrors angled so that no one ever sees themselves straight on. People say it's aesthetic. I think it's intentional. I think the bar learned something about reflection long before I did. By the time my vision started to blur, I had already stopped blinking normally. At first, it was subtle. Faces at the bar looked flatter than they should have. Not out of focus, compressed. As if depth itself had been squeezed out of them. When customers leaned close to speak over the music, their eyes seemed too prominent, bulging slightly, straining forward like they were trying to escape the skull. I caught myself staring. The itch worsened. Then came the pressure. It felt as though my eyes were swelling, not outward but inward, pushing back into my head, crowding something behind them. I would press my palms against my face after closing, breathing through my teeth as the sensation peaked, convinced my eyes might rupture backwards into my brain. I told myself it was stress. Eden rewards that kind of denial. I found the optician on a night when the pressure became unbearable. I had finished my shift and stepped out into the narrow street behind Worship, vision swimming, sweat running down my spine despite the cold. The street should have been empty. Instead, there was a shop where there hadn't been one before. Sato Optical. The sign looked stretched, the lettering elongated vertically, as though pulled upward by invisible hooks. The windows were fogged from the inside, thick with condensation, streaked by slow trails where something had dragged itself downward repeatedly. The itch behind my eyes flared violently. The door opened. The air inside the shop felt thick. Not warm. Not cold. Dense. Like breathing through damp fabric. The smell was wrong. Old wood, antiseptic, and something unmistakably organic. The kind of smell you notice in hospitals late at night, when no one is supposed to be dying. Shelves lined the walls, packed with glasses. Thousands of them. Every pair faced outward, lenses catching the light like watchful eyes. Some frames looked brittle and ancient. Others glistened faintly, wet at the edges. At the far end of the room sat an examination chair. Behind it stood the optician. He was tall and thin, his limbs slightly too long, joints bending at angles that made my stomach tighten. His glasses magnified his eyes grotesquely, stretching them into glossy, insect-like ovals. "You waited too long," he said. My mouth moved before my mind caught up. "They hurt," I whispered. He smiled. The chair cradled my skull too well. As soon as I sat, the pressure in my eyes spiked so violently that I screamed. The optician's hands were on my temples instantly, fingers cool and firm, holding my head in place. "Don't pull away," he murmured. "They're already under strain." The light clicked on. Agony exploded behind my eyes. It felt as though the light was entering them, boring inward, peeling back layers I hadn't known were there. I gagged as something inside my skull twitched, responding. "Tell me," he said calmly, "when did you begin seeing movement inside people?" "I don't," I gasped. "I don't see." "Yes," he said, pressing harder. "You do." The chart behind him was not made of letters. At first glance, it pretended to be. But the longer I stared, the more the shapes unraveled. They weren't symbols, they were openings. Small, spiraling apertures that seemed to sink inward, deeper than the wall itself. As I tried to focus, something behind my eyes shifted. A wet, internal adjustment. I screamed again. "Good," he whispered. "You're responding." When he placed the glasses in my hands, they pulsed faintly. The frames were warm and soft, the texture uneven, faintly ridged like healed scar tissue. The lenses were thick and cloudy, swirling internally with slow-moving distortions that made my stomach lurch. "What are they?" I asked. "Relief," he said. "I put them on because the pain was unbearable." The pressure vanished. Instantly. So suddenly that I sobbed. But the relief was wrong. Too deep. Too complete. Like a scream cut off mid-breath. The world snapped into focus with violent clarity. Colors deepened grotesquely. Shadows gained volume, bulging outward as if filled with something. The optician's face peeled apart into layers, skin, muscle, structure, all visible at once, stacked like anatomical diagrams refusing to align. "Oh," I whispered. "Oh my gods!" "Yes," he said. "Now you see." Outside, Eden was flayed open. The air itself was layered, thick with invisible structures that stretched between buildings like sinew. People walked through them, dragging after images like shed skins. Some had eyes that protruded unnaturally, straining forward. Others had sockets that looked too deep, as though something had been removed to make space. I staggered home, shaking. Every reflective surface showed me my eyes. They were larger, stretched, wet. And behind them, something was pressing forward, thrilled by the space it had been given. That night, I tried to remove the glasses. The moment they lifted, my vision collapsed inward, pain tearing through my skull as something inside surged forward violently, scraping against bone. I slammed the glasses back onto my face, screaming. In the bathroom mirror, my eyes bulged obscenely, veins spiderwebbing across the whites, pupils dilated far too wide. I watched them blink. I hadn't told them to. At worship, the mirrors betrayed everything. Reflections lagged, warped, sometimes refusing to mimic my movements at all. Patrons peeled open when I looked too long, faces splitting subtly at the seams, revealing glossy cavities beneath. They watched me pour drinks with reverence, with hunger. And when I finally understood why my eyes had been hurting, why they had needed space, I vomited behind the bar. Because something inside me was growing. I returned to the optician the next night. Not because I wanted answers, but because my eyes were no longer enough. I stopped dreaming after the third night. Not because I slept better, but because my eyes no longer closed completely. Even when I forced my lids shut, vision continued. Dimmed, filtered through red and black, but uninterrupted. The darkness behind my eyes was no longer empty. It was occupied. Shapes nested there, pressing gently, patiently, like fingers testing a wound. The glasses had changed. I could feel it the moment I touched them. The frames no longer rested on my nose. They gripped it. Softened, tightened. The ridges along the arms pulsed faintly, synchronizing with my heartbeat. When I tried to slide them off, pain bloomed not at my temples but inside my skull, as if thin filaments had been threaded through my optic nerves and tugged in warning. I left them on. I always left them on. Worship noticed before I did. The mirrors began reacting to me. When I passed behind the bar, reflections bent inward, faces warping around my own like wax drawn toward flame. In some mirrors, my reflection appeared with a delay, half a second, a full second, long enough for it to smile after I had not. Customers started asking questions. "Do you feel that pressure? Do my eyes look wrong to you? Why does it hurt when you look at me?" I pretended not to hear. But when I looked at them, really looked, I understood. Their eyes were changing. The city was ripening. That was the word that came to me unbidden. Ripening. I could see it now, a faint swelling behind people's eyes, a bulge pressing forward like overfilled fruit. Some resisted, their sockets reddened and inflamed. Others welcomed it, letting their gaze grow glossy and vacant, pupils dilated into perfect black discs. Those ones stared at me longest. They recognized me. The first rupture happened behind the bar. A woman, early 30s, dressed carefully, nervously, leaned forward to order. As she spoke, I saw it, a hairline split forming at the corner of her right eye. Not skin, structure. A fine seam pulling apart under pressure. I watched, frozen, as something behind her eye pressed forward. The eyeball bulged. Then gave. There was no spray. No violence. Just a soft, wet displacement as her eye slid partially out of the socket, dangling, still attached, rotating slowly as if searching for a better angle. She screamed. Everyone screamed. I didn't. Because I saw what emerged behind it. An aperture. Not flesh. Not bone. A spiraling cavity where the eye had been, rotating slowly inward, lined with wet, reflective ridges that contracted and expanded rhythmically, tasting the air. It looked back at me. Recognition flared between us. The woman collapsed. The aperture withdrew. By the time the ambulance arrived, her eye had settled back into place, though it hung wrong, unfocused, leaking clear fluid that steamed faintly on her cheek. No one remembered the cavity. But I did. That night, the optician came to worship. I didn't see him enter. He was simply there, reflected infinitely in the mirrors, his elongated body folding wrong in every angle. "You're progressing faster than expected," he said, sipping a drink he hadn't ordered. My hands shook. "What's inside my eyes?" I asked. He tilted his head. "What's inside any of them?" He told me Eden had always required witnesses. That the city fed on perception, not sight, but acknowledgement. Every horror needed to be seen to exist fully. Every god needed eyes. "Most people only offer the surface," he said. "You offer depth." He reached across the bar and gently lifted my glasses just enough for me to feel the internal resistance, the tugging, the almost pain. Behind my eyes, something flexed. Hungry. After that night, my vision began slipping. Not blurring. Leaving. I would blink and find myself seeing from somewhere else. A woman in a bath, her eyes bulging grotesquely as she clawed at her face. A man in a parked car, screaming as his vision split into multiple overlapping perspectives. A child staring into a mirror, watching something blink back out of sync. Each time, I snapped back into my body gasping, blood trickling from my nose. I understood then. The apertures were spreading to others through the mirrors. And I was their anchor. Sleep became impossible. When my body rested, my vision traveled. I saw Eden's hidden layers, corridors between reflections, cavities behind windows, things pressed against the underside of mirrors, waiting for attention. I saw worship differently now. The mirrors were not decorative. They were mouths. All mirrors were. The next time I tried to remove the glasses, I made it halfway. There was a sound. A tearing sound. Something inside my skull screamed. I collapsed, convulsing, hands clawing uselessly at my face as warm fluid poured from my eyes. When I came to, the glasses were back in place. I did not remember putting them on. And I found myself in a hospital, somewhere far from the city center. They say a man named Andrew found me unconscious in the streets, and that the glasses were fused to my face. Since then, I have been put under observation, and endless testing for my unique eye condition. The aperture phenomena in the city dispersed after I was brought to the hospital. And I write this now because they say my eyes are damaged beyond repair, and I don't know if this will someday completely kill me. They have covered the mirrors, afraid they may connect my accursed eyes to others once more. It doesn't matter. Because I don't need mirrors anymore. The doctors believe containment is possible. They think isolation will starve the apertures, which they now believe to be a living parasitic entity. They think vision is passive. They are wrong. The city of Eden still watches itself. Through windows. Through screens. Through eyes. And sometimes, when you feel pressure building behind your own, when mirrors seem deeper than they should be, when something looks back just a moment too late, remember this: there are things we are allowed to see, and things we are not. But permission is changing, and soon, no one will be able to look away.